Let's talk about what's happening in Gaza. Owing to the war, Gaza has been in serious humanitarian crisis, shortage of food and basic supplies being experienced in that area. And this time around, the US and Europe and also some Middle East contribution coming together to provide humanitarian corridor for for Gaza Strip. Now, this time around, it's going to take through waterways because the routes through which they were going before seem not enough for them to push in a lot of supplies. But I'm not the one to talk about this. Idahosa Osamhanze, who is Director, Research and Policy, African Development Studies Center, and also in-house analyst here at Souq News, is seated with us this morning. He'll be talking about what's going on in Gaza and why the collaboration between the US and Europe and also Middle East to provide them support. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Blessing, good morning. Family, good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here again this morning.
Yes, and you blew fine this morning.
Yes.
Okay, I hope I get a drink for that after.
That would be just right to do.
Okay.
What a right combination. Compliment.
So I see that the men chose to be on a lane different from mine
Yes.
today.
It seems so.
Maybe that makes you unique.
Yes,
Yeah.
it makes me unique and blessed amongst
You
men.
know, oh yeah.
Let's take a look at Gaza, the war ongoing and the humanitarian crisis in that part of the world right now. Now, aids have been sent there before, aids have been shipped there, but it seemed not to be enough. Now, to accommodate more and to do more for Gaza, US and Europe coming together to provide, to create a humanitarian corridor for more aid to be sent. What's your take on that?
You know, when I was thinking about this announcement from the US and Western Europe, a scripture flew through my mind. And that seems for me really summary. They say, yes, woe to you, Pharisees and scribes. You love to pay tithe of every little fruit that comes from your garden. But the most important matter, which is to say fairness, justice, mercy, and love, you have left them undone. That you should have done while paying your tithe. Now you ask me, what's the connect between that statement and the effort to get a corridor to pass humanitarian materials to people in Gaza? I think Europe and America owe the key to the peace in the Middle East. And I don't think it is humanitarian support that the people in the Middle East need. The people in the Middle East need peace so that they can produce what they eat and eat what they produce and not perennially be in a war state which is foiled from the outside. That's my real concern and that's my worry. You see, when these things happen, we seem not to even be looking at the political economy of crisis and violent warfare around the world. Now, these humanitarian aids we are talking about, somebody is producing it, somebody is buying it. So it's like creating a market for your products so that you can ship it to where people are dying, which for me is inhuman. And I think that if the Western powers will address the real issue of justice in the Middle East, there will be no need to be creating the corridor to supply humanitarian assistance. The children are dying, they are in hunger because of a conflict that is avoidable. And this is one issue that we must take. I was following earlier on when we're talking about the politics of Biden and Trump. For 4 years, there was peace in the Middle East under Trump. Because it was not an interest to him. So you seem to find that all the trouble spot in the world, new peace. And today, Trump can still beat his chest and say, oh, if I was still president of America, even Ukraine and Russia couldn't go to war. I think this is, for me, what is the fundamental. This is what the world should be looking at, how to get permanent peace in the Middle East. This is more important to me than this aid that you are passing around, or trouble spots where you are having interest, just like Sam Orujo was saying yesterday. The weapons that are used in those warfare, you are the one manufacturing it, and your companies are feeding facts on the life of the people. So I think it is the peace, really, to pursue peace in the Middle East is most important. And all these politics of destabilization to create economy should actually stop, my view.
All right. I hear you and I understand your argument, but officially we don't have the information that in the next 24 hours the war will come to an end. So it means the humanitarian needs are also necessary. And if you look at what is playing out, going by road is difficult because of the security threat. If you need to go by a road, you either go through Egypt or Jordan. And that's the essence of creating this maritime corridor, so that these human assistance or aids could get to the people who need it, because it's a priority for now. So what do you make of this development? Because the humanitarian crisis in Gaza
I agree. Yeah. That was the scripture I quoted.
Yeah.
They said, yes, you should tithe. It's important. But you should not leave the most important matter, which is fairness, which is justice, which is mercy, which is faith. So, yes, aids are good for people who are already dying. We see this dying. But I think the most fundamental issue that Americans need to show humanity, the European countries need to show humanity to the people in the Middle East. You can imagine, for example, the interest America is having in Syria for the last how many years that killings and dying have been happening. Because you want to pretend the life of another person. This, for me, is what is fundamental. So, and I think we need to really be looking at the most important issues in their ranking. For me, if there's no war between the Palestinian and the Israeli, do we be talking about corridor for humanitarian affairs? And if it is easier for us to stop the war, why are we taking the route of allowing people to be fighting and killing themselves, and then we are looking for where to be supplying them succor?
But the issue is, if the Israeli Prime Minister has decided this is the route to go, what much of influence will US have if they tried in Nairobi, but the Prime Minister has decided, yes, I need to do this to make a statement, and also, so how much of influence?
You see, this is the point I'm saying. The same Prime Minister was in power when Donald Trump was in power. And there was peace in that region. Because Donald Trump, on his first assignment in the UN General Assembly, and he said, I am president of America. I'm not president of any other country in the world. And he was so interested that every president should be the president of their country and not president of another country. So take care of the interest in your region. Because me as president, America first to me. And I'm going to prioritize America. So every country is prioritizing their issues. So I'm not having an affair to say, oh, if this is how I want things to be done here, this is how I want things to be done here, this is who I want to rule here, this is who cannot rule here. That was not the interest of Donald Trump. And so what do you see? For 4 years, there was relative peace globally. We can't deny that fact. So this is the issue. Even the very toxic North Korea, their president was able to shake hands with Donald Trump. And the hostility get down. So this for me is, so we know it is possible to have peace. Haven't seen that regime peace for 4 years. So I feel that is the most noble path to take. Rather than look for corridor where we can be shipping in humanitarian affairs and somehow arms and ammunition can still come in through that corridor so that the people can be killing themselves. That's my real worry.
But is it actually right to say that America has influence in what is going on and they could have prevailed in the opposite direction? Take a look at what happened in Ukraine and Russia. Was it America's influence on Ukraine to say they want to join NATO?
Oh, yes.
Did America make Ukraine insist on joining NATO?
Oh, yes. You see, this is the politics among nations, as written by Hans Morgenthau. See, America knows that Russia is a superpower. And of course, you need to get a nation closer to Russia to oversee what they are doing. So who is influencing Ukraine against America? If you are taking time to listen to a 2-hour interview that Tucker Carlson had with Putin recently, that the entire American were calling him all sorts of names, especially the Democrats, because it took time to go and check out with Putin what the real issues are. And Putin took time to educate Tuxin the impact and the role that America is playing in that crisis. That the actual aggressor is America and not Russia or Ukraine.
But that could be said to be his narrative.
Yeah, but what are we going to see here? You can imagine, even during the Cold War, the period between 1947 and 1987, Cuba, which was at the backyard of America, that was a communist state, America prevented Russia from coming in there to even have ties with Cuba. And Cuba was sandwiched for years. Fidel Castro was put on a terrible hold by the United States because of his friendship with America. We saw what happened in Venezuela. So you can see this, that in international relations, there are rules that you need to observe and govern. And when you, who is supposed to be the international policeman of the whole world, and you are breaking rule at will and taking sides on issues, what you're already doing is just like you have a father who is fighting. So if you have children fighting as a father, when you come in, what do? You separate them. That was what Putin was saying. If America is actually, as is claimed, to be the international policeman of the world, let's even assume there's a hostility between Russia and Ukraine. What role should they play? Is it to give more weapons to Ukraine to fight Russia or to stop the fight? This is the issue. So we must understand this power play in the international scene, that people are stoking fire where there should be no fire. And this is because of the huge economy that is around conflict and war.
All right. As the war situation is right now, and U.S. and Europe coming together to provide humanitarian corridor for Gaza. So Israel too has agreed to it, but insisting that there will be security checks. Should Israel be commended for even agreeing to allow the humanitarian aid go to Gaza?
You see, but this is the issue I just said. That was, for me, it was so fundamental, that scripture coming to my mind. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Why are we allowing people to say, okay, take food, take clothes, and then the following day you come and do the shooting? That's hypocrisy at its best. And I think the world needs some measure of peace. And people know, and countries know, what should be is live and let us live. And this should not be rocket science. to achieve peace in the Middle East, because it is possible. The only reason why the peace in the Middle East is not possible is because the interests of some certain people will not be protected if there is peace in the Middle East. So for me, this corridor or humanitarian activity for people who are dying is hypocrisy at its best.
All right. Let me put it this way. I think the argument on the part of Zelensky is the fact that Ukraine also should be able to be, if I'm not sure, the idea is should be able to protect its sovereignty.
Yes.
And then, given the fact that they have their sovereignty, they can determine their fate. Now, how do you marry that with the supposed role that you expect the U.S. to play? And then what should Joe Biden, what should he have done differently? I'm aware they've had conversations, even with Israeli Prime Minister. Perhaps it doesn't make any difference. What should he have done differently this time around, now that this crisis is lingering more than expected?
You know, that question looks very profound. But the question to ask is that this crisis in Ukraine and Russia didn't start with Joe Biden administration.
But he has a responsibility now.
No, but what I'm saying
is the president.
The real truth of the matter is that this crisis started since the Orange Revolution in Ukraine in 2014. So why didn't he blow into full-scale war until his own tenure? That's a question to ask. That's a question to ask. And I will say, as a student of history, you'll find it out. Go and check it out. Sometimes you see Democrats took up this fire of war because that's all they know to do. And then leave it for Republicans to fight most of the time. So this is the issue. Because the gun industry in the U.S. is hungry. They don't want to shut it down. This is an open truth.
But you know, we're on the national TV. It's not just to say the gun industry.
Oh,
you
yes.
must also understand that the U.S. has a role to play here.
What role?
And then if you have a president who has decided, okay, my country has its own sovereignty and I need to protect it, and we've taken our decision to form alliance with NATO. So what will Joe Biden do?
You see, the issue is, what will he do? That's what I said to you. If you have two sons, two of your sons, and this one carry stick, this one carry stick, and they want to fight, what should you do as a father?
Agreed, you step
Give
into
knife to the other one? Is that what you will do?
But Ukraine was seen as the weaker power to Russia.
But let's even see that they were the weaker power. But I'm saying that you have two sons and they want to fight. The bigger one and the younger one. Have you? And this one hold a stick, this one hold a stick. You, as a parent, what should you do? Give knife to the younger one so that he can overpower the senior one. Is that what you will do?
You step in to mediate, but this are countries.
No, but what I'm saying, I understand. It's same principle. Now, if you are going to mediate, do you give weapon to one part?
In the case of the parents, the two children will listen to the parents. But in the case of these two countries, they each have their sovereignty.
So yeah,
there's an
I
extent to which the US can
I don't have a problem with the sovereignty. Now, the two countries have sovereignty. Then, it's either you want to mediate or you stay aloof.
But would that not be considered a bigger crime if US has stayed aloof for Russia to invade
Russia will not invade Ukraine. That's what I'm saying to you. And that's why Putin says, who is the real aggressor? We need to understand these dimensions of this crisis. You see, because what you are looking at is, the narrative that is painted in the Western media. That is why Tucker took pain to go to Russia, so to go and hear the other side of the narrative of things that is it. And the fact it took time to tell the history and the document and the signatures, which it was. that yes, at the dismemberment of the old Soviet Russia, there was an agreement that was entered into by member nations that they were going to be borderless. So there's not going to be border between Russia and Ukraine and other members of the Soviet regime, because they still see themselves as one and as brothers. So if I have an open border with you, and somebody is saying he wants to come and empower you with my open border, and we have not closed our border, that's dangerous to security. So what I'm saying is that you should also try as much as possible to respect other people's sovereignty. And it is in respecting the other people's sovereignty that you see that we won't get into trouble. Now, the trouble we are facing, whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in Palestine, is the fact that, you see, when behind these small tribe crises is that the bigger power who are actually benefiting. Because I asked myself, for example, almost all the contracts of supply of weapons that enter into Ukraine, all their life they will be paying that thing. The entire nation is destroyed. So what help does it do to Ukraine? No help. So this is what it is. So Europe must not be gathering weapons to give to Ukraine to fight their senior brother. That's exactly what's happening. And if you want peace in the region and in the world, then we should be the mediators of peace. That's why for me that scripture was so fundamental, that you are looking at it, see Pharisees, religious leaders.
But it's also a difficult situation for US to stay neutral here, you know, because
what is difficult about it? What are they to lose?
The supposed alliance of Ukraine with NATO provides that members are also protected, and that should give reason for US.
So what protection has NATO given to Ukraine now?
In terms of weapon and humanitarian aid.
How has it furthered the crisis? Because the war is fought in Ukraine, not in Russia.
Anyway, let's leave that conversation for another day. Let's get back to Israel and Gaza. Now, there are calls for ceasefire now that the fasting is here, and the Israeli Prime Minister is in the picture. It's the eye of the storm now. What would you expect to yield to this advocacy, or what would you expect him to do at this time, now that its religion has come in and it's a sensitive period?
Well, I don't see the Israeli Prime Minister backing down, because he said from day one that it was a fight to finish. And incidentally, it's also getting close to Yom Kippur, and of course Israel to fight. And of course we've had this history of the fight between Israel and the Palestinian war has been forever. We're not hoping to see anything that is positive. But what is important in this issue, for me really, is that the international organization, especially the United Nations, should be able to maintain justice. You see, because like somebody once said, if there's a threat, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So once we can address the issue of injustice, wars will naturally end. War will naturally end. And we have seen in international relations theories of war as propounded by Karl von Clausewitz in the early 19th century, that war is a continuation of policy by other means. So that's what you're saying. So when you see war, there's something that some people are benefiting and gaining from it, because nations just don't go to war. But we can actually, like the United Nations is set up, to look at world peace. But because of the undemocratic nature of the United Nations itself, where of course you have a General Assembly that's almost like a toothless bulldog, but you have the Security Council that take the decision, but the Security Council is not democratized and is treated on one side. So we have to address the issue of justice globally and know that some people have the right to live. On the other show yesterday, and I was asking a very simple question. Why is it that when you see where resources are taken out, there's always a crisis there? The footprint in Egypt is not gone. It's still there till tomorrow. In Tunisia, Syria has been ongoing because the leader stood strong and had been killing his citizens because some people are having interest in those regions. So when you ask, people should be allowed to govern themselves the way they want. So why is somebody saying to me, for example, we saw recently the ban on some countries because they refuse to adopt homosexuality. So why should that become the interest of America, for example? That my country, for example, why should my morality become your issue? So this is where, for me, we need to begin to talk about world peace, and leaders must begin to understand that peace is better than war at the end of the day. There's no amount of weapon that people will sell that will actually amount to anything, that people will have to be alive to buy those weapons, really.
As we talk about world peace, what is the role of the leaders directly involved in this in ensuring world peace? Because Turkey and the US have been talking about the situation between Ukraine and Russia, and also Gaza and Israel. But for Turkey, the position is that Ukraine and Russia are unwilling to end the fight. And the same seems to be the situation between Gaza and Israel. Israel looks like it's unwilling to end the fight. Gaza too looks like it's unwilling for it to happen. So what should be their role towards world peace? There's an extent to which external interference can go in ensuring peace.
Don't take side.
No, it's a question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How? Don't take side. Be neutral. Just like Donald Trump was neutral and we saw relative peace. It's also possible for world leaders to be neutral and we will find peace. Because if you are not, you see, the real issue is this. You have a situation in hand and somebody is about to fight, and then you who's supposed to be the third party, what do? You sue for peace and say, please don't fight. It's not good to fight. What is the real issue? Let's look at it. Let's deal with the justice of the matter. Then, of course, two people will come to the table and they will negotiate and they will drop down their weapons. But when you are giving weapons to somebody from the behind, and somehow you are denying some other people access to the same weapon, what you are simply saying is that you have interest in that warfare and you want it to continue for as long as it lasts. So the path to world peace is justice. And I think that is what the United Nations should stand for. But unfortunately, like has always been argued, the United Nations has been a toothless bulldog because it does not have power, really, to enforce some of its resolutions.
Okay, we'll leave the discussion here today and hope that the world leaders can find a round table to come to and just somehow get around talks about peace and actually ensuring that the wars come to an end, because they also have global effect, even though the effect on those directly involved is more than what you could think of elsewhere. Thank you very much, Idahosa Osamhanze, for
we hope free trade move and not just humanitarian activities moving around the world, that people trade freely and build wealth.
I don't want to look into that because it seems like this is a US call-out. But we also want to preach fairness here, and we thank you too. Maybe one day, as Putin has given the tour interview, we'll get the US, we'll get Zelensky and all of them involved, even Netanyahu and those from the Gaza Strip, to also tell their side of the story. That's the show today. I am Blessing H. Stay with Souq News and have yourself a great day.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.